Hi, welcome to College Prep Chemistry. This is Dr. Cindy Pedersen. Just with this video, we're going to be discussing the classroom procedures and the syllabus, and we are going to practice taking our notes. All right, so the first thing, well, what is chemistry? So you probably have been exposed to chemistry before in middle school, but chemistry, our definition right here, and this is what you're going to write down in your notes, is it's the study of the composition, structure, and properties of matter. All right, so matter is just stuff. So it's the study of the composition, that means what it's made of. The structure is how it looks, and the properties are like how it behaves and how it acts of stuff, of matter. It also is many different things around us. So chemistry is around us everywhere. We will be discussing this in more detail, but rust is an example. Pharmaceuticals are all made with chemistry. Plastics, cleaning supplies, fuel, dyes is something we will look at. Of course, fuel for your cars, octane, pigments in paints. There are lots of different chemicals in your toiletries and different soaps and things like that. We actually are going to be making soap as our very final project. The way leaves change color is a chemical process. And lastly, biochemistry. So, of course, the chemistry of our DNA, hormones, all the chemicals that we use in our body. The objectives of this course, so first is to study the history and development of the field of chemistry. And we're going to spend a good amount of time on this. We'll study, this is Dmitry Mendeleev. He is the founder of the periodic table. Up here, we have Marie Curie and her husband. And they were the founders of radioactivity. All right, we're going to identify the effects of chemistry around us in everyday life. So we're going to look at, like the chemicals in that are around us that we use every day. Then we're going to look at the atom, look at the atomic structure and how the structure of an atom influences its behavior, what type of chemicals it will make up, or what kind of elements. Then lastly, we're going to interact with chemical processes to understand chemical concepts. This just basically means that we're going to do labs. So I really like labs, so we're going to do quite a few in here. And we're going to use them to look at chemistry in a bunch of different ways. And we'll typically do about 2 per a unit. We're going to work on our scientific skills. So some of these you've been exposed to in biology, but we're going to expand on these. The first one is lab safety. That's very important for us. So we're going to spend a little bit studying about that in the beginning. Our labware, whatever we use in the labs, we're going to be using a lot of different things in the lab. You'll learn the difference between an Erlenmeyer flask and a beaker. And then lastly, we'll be using the scientific method. So for each lab, I'm going to have you identify the variables we're looking at, and then we're going to write about it. We're going to talk about what we find and what we do. This is an outline of what we're going to be doing. So the first is our classroom procedures and scientific skills. That's what we'll do for the first 2 weeks here. And that will include the scientific method. Then we'll have an exam. Then we're going to talk about math and measurements. So that's actually 2 different units here. Then next will be the chemistry of matter. So just what is a solid, liquid, gas, atom and electrons. The periodic table, we'll do a fun project here. And that will probably be the first semester. Second semester, we'll start with chemical bonds. So what kind of different chemicals get together and what they make. Reactions, balancing equations. You might have been exposed to that before. Gases, liquids, and solids. If we have time, we will do these 3. Nuclear chemistry, the chemistry of life, the chemistry of cooking. So that's basically what we will cover in the class. The syllabus, which I will hand out in class, so you need to review this and read it, and then it needs to be signed by you and a guardian. I want the signed page uploaded by Friday, that should be tomorrow, at 8:25 on MyBC. These are my expectations of you as a student here in my classroom. The first one is to be present. Like if you don't come to class, it's hard to learn the material. It's a very interactive class, so if you're not here, you'll miss out. Now, you can make up labs. I do not exempt labs, so if you miss a lab, you will have to make it up. The next is be prepared. So that means bringing something to write with. If you're doing calculations that day, your calculator and your notes. Being respectful. So we do a lot of group work together here. So you need to respect your fellow cadets. You need to participate. So I do all these labs, and typically it'll be groups of 2 to 3. But I need you to participate to actually learn the material. Then lastly, advocate. So now that you guys aren't freshmen anymore, it's your responsibility to learn the material. And if there's a problem, you need to come to me, and I'm definitely here to help you out. Classroom procedures, so every day. So absolutely no cell phones, of course. If I see a cell phone, I'm just going to take it away and give it to Farmer. So just don't even bring your cell phones into the classroom. The laptops are to be used only during assignments. Now we do some assignments on the laptop, so that's obviously, you'll need them then. So I do want you to bring them, but you should not sit down and completely open up your laptop every day. You will need to bring a binder or folder. I don't care what you use, and if you want to share it with another class, that's fine with me. But a binder or folder with your notes and your labs, because you will be quizzed and tested on both your notes and your labs. A calculator, it will need to be scientific so that you can do exponents and scientific notation and then use a log button. A pencil or a pen, either is fine. Lab safety needs to be observed at all times. So we should never be running in the lab. There is no horseplay. We'll talk about this more later. And then also your guided notes. All right, the laptop, just a couple notes. It's only school-issued laptop is allowed. It's only to be used during the assignments, but you must bring it every day. Grading, so this is the same throughout the science department. Labs and quizzes are 30%, homework is 20%, and exams and projects are 50%. The lab groups are going to be assigned each semester. They're assigned to a bench and to the equipment that you are using. You're responsible for your lab materials, and you're responsible for cleaning. So cleaning is actually 10% of your lab grade. So if you do not clean, you may lose those points. Your lab reports are worth 30% of your overall grade, along with the quizzes. They're the same. So there's a standard form for each lab. The pre-lab homework will be assigned the day before the lab and will be due on MyBC by 8:25. Usually it's reading the procedures and thinking about the safety and answering any pre-lab questions. Usually I just have you type those into MyBC. The data and observations are worth 30% of your lab. So this is just actually completing the experiment, writing down what you see, including your data. And you must always include units. That's 30%. The post-lab is the majority of the lab, and that's 40%. Those are calculations, questions, summaries, and they're due at the beginning of class. We'll have one day where we work on the labs, like a post-lab day, where you do that in class, and then usually it's due the next day. You will be responsible for having information on your own report. We might have pop quizzes, and all questions must be answered in your own words. That's very important, okay? Own words. Like even though you're working in a group together, you need to think about this on your own and write it down. Like you can collaborate, you can talk to each other about it, but it must be in your own words. The extra 30% of your lab grade, so 10% is participation, 10% is safety, and 10% is cleanliness. Now, labs are a privilege. If you do not follow the lab safety rules, you will be asked to sit down and receive no credit for the lab. These are some of the labs that we will be doing. Elephant toothpaste, that's when we will start off with next week. We will then use Alka-Seltzer rockets. Those are our first two for the first unit. We'll be calibrating our own thermometers, looking at density, doing measurements, filtration, isotopes, flame test. The flame test is one of the most fun labs right here. Ionic and covalent properties, intermolecular forces, reaction types, steel wool. This is also a really fun one. We look at the 5 different types of reactions. I'm looking at the pressure inside of a popcorn kernel, precipitation reactions, and the effectiveness of antacids. And we might be adding in more. I do change these periodically. All right, our homework will either be a pre-lab or filling out the guided notes, just like we are doing today. So there will be a PowerPoint video up on my YouTube channel, which is at Cynthia Pedersen. All right, that is my YouTube channel. So you can access this anywhere. The links will always be up on MyBC under the topic. Or it may be reading an article and filling out some questions. The notes will be checked periodically. This is in class at the beginning of class, and I grade the notes on completion. We will be doing several projects. So there's one project each quarter. The first one is the lab practicum. So this is actually where I will test you on measuring and doing some simple math. Right. Next is designing our own periodic table. So I will have you design a periodic table of a topic that you choose. So it could be like cars or trees or fish or boats, whatever. But you need to organize it like a periodic table. And we'll talk more about that later. The third one that we'll do after Christmas is aluminum smelting. So this is actually a melting and recycling of aluminum, and we'll actually melt it down. That's a really fun one. And then lastly, we're going to make and market your own soap. So I'm going to have you guys pretend that you're a soap company, and you actually will make soap, and then you'll come up with the promotional materials and a write-up, and you'll have to talk about it in front of the class. And that is the